Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to the Tried and Tested podcast. If you're not familiar with my show, I am your host Tracey, and this is a dating and relationship podcast where we talk about all things from who should pay for the first date to making up and breaking up and everything in between. So today I have a special guest. I have Christy. Say hey, Christy.
Hey.
So thank you so much for being my special guest for today. And we are going to go right into the topic. So we are going to be discussing today mismatched dating, aka being unequally yoked. Okay. So when you hear that title or that thought, what comes to mind when you hear that when I say mismatched dating?
Well, I definitely think of just, somebody. I think the most tangible thing for us is we think of somebody on two different incomes dating, somebody who's extremely wealthy versus somebody who's not. And of course, that's, I think, a misnomer. You can certainly be mismatched in so many different ways. But either way, it's a relationship that, for me, that I consider to have a lot more roadblocks than the average relationship, so to speak.
Okay. That makes sense. And it's funny that you said you mentioned income, because for me, when I think about mismatched dating, I mean, I'm sure that I think about money, but I really don't think about money. Like, for me, I just feel like we don't have the same type of, I guess, fundamental, what is it? I don't even know the word I'm trying to say. We don't have the same, I guess, thought process when it comes to life. So how do I want to spend my money? What do I do for fun? Like, those kind of things are what I feel like, I guess, when it comes down to your personality type, like how, like, is it different? Is it the same? So that's what I think about when I hear mismatched dating, I guess. But then you're right.
Or like an intellectual wavelength.
Yeah. I mean, it could be education. It could be, like, okay, you live with your family and I live alone. That could, to me, kind of be mismatched. Or I have a vehicle and you don't. You take the bus, which I actually had a conversation about recently. But you know what I mean? So, like, things where it's kind of like we're not on the same level playing field across the board. And that, to me, is kind of like it could be considered mismatched dating, because it's like somebody's already not necessarily in need of you or in need of your help. But, yeah, that's interesting. But we'll definitely get into that. And then, so, okay, so you mentioned income, right? So before we even jump into the topic, so what do you mean? Like, when you think that income, like, what about income and what difference in income? So do you mean, like, if I make $30,000 and my man makes $50,000, or are you talking about like 30,000 and 100,000? Like, what type of income would you consider mismatched dating?
I don't, let me just give you some background. My parents have been married for 42 years. So I do think, given demographics, it's kind of rare to see in the Black community nowadays that people last that long. So for me, and then my dad is also the sole provider in the family. So that just kind of sets things apart, because, there are a lot of couples, and there's nothing wrong with that they both have to work to, make their living, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think mismatched dating isn't necessarily the monetary value you have. Like, let's say someone's a teacher, they make $50,000 a year, and somebody is a CEO. They make more than 100, 200, whatever you make as your CEO, depending on the size of your business. So that can be, that monetary value can be, but if they come from the same background, let's say they actually grew up in the same neighborhood, then they're not necessarily mismatched. Mismatched dating really is kind of like, I hate to say it, classist in a way, when somebody comes from a different mindset of low income, and then you have somebody who has, let's say they didn't grow up with a budget, which unfortunately was my case. Growing up, there was no budget. And then I got into college and people were like, "Oh, what is your budget?" I'm like, "What?"
But then wait, but is it a class? Then is it particularly like the classes, or is it like the household? Because me and you can be in the same class, but my parents don't know how to save money for, the life of them. And then
that's very true. That's a very good point. I mean, I think that's the point where I back away, because I'm not trying to. I think we've gotten into this thing where we name call a lot. There's classes, and you're poor and you're wealthy. No. And we kind of need to release certain labels so that we can actually see people for who they are. You don't want to the reason why mismatched dating is so important is because if you don't get somebody who literally is on your same mental wavelength, when it comes to finances, when it comes to communication, when it comes to personal relationship, then now you've created a whole nother barrel of issues that you have to work out outside of normal issues that somebody evenly matched works out. And I think as a generation, we're so busy focused on maybe one or two of those things that we forget a third, and now we're mismatched. For instance, you might have two people, they met at college, so you can't say that they're necessarily mismatched on income, but one person is in the sciences and the other person is in, say, art, right? And so now their approaches are completely different because the disciplines that they've learned are completely different. And so maybe one person is expecting the other to be financially fit, and their profession doesn't afford that. And so now they've ignored finances going to the relationship because, the communication was good and, the physical was good, but they ignored the finances, and they end up in divorce because that became such a large issue that they overlooked within their relationship. So I keep on bringing finances, but it can be communication as well. You can be mismatched with communication as well.
Yes. Okay. So funny enough that you brought up artists, right? Or like someone in the arts versus someone in the sciences, because the reality of it is I actually have a friend, her husband is an artist, and she does like project management or something like that. But his business is booming, and he's actually the breadwinner, at this time, for their family. But one thing I would say about finances is that anybody can go from broke to rich in an instant and vice versa, right? And so it's like, yes, I don't think I would want to date a man that if I'm making $100K a year and he's making 20,000 with a vision, I'm sure I still would be kind of skeptical about moving forward. But I also think that there's so many other things that I guess we should put more emphasis on, because like at the end of the day, when your partner is sick, will they stay with you? Can they care for you? Can they cook? Can they clean? Are they there for you emotionally? You get what I'm trying to say? Like, I feel like, so money is important, and money management is important, but there can be a point in time where, let's just say, the woman gets pregnant and she's the breadwinner and she loses her job or whatever. It's kind of like there's other things I feel like we have to kind of look at. But what I did like, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I said sure. I was agreeing.
Oh, okay. So what I did like is when we spoke initially, before we even came up with this topic for us to talk about, I know you had kind of mentioned about, and I think you were referring to Black women specifically, that were almost like taking care of men. Like they could take care of themselves, but when it came to dating now, the particular pool of Black women you were referring to were almost like taking care of the man that they were interested in. Did I get that right or no?
Yes, absolutely. And the reason why I say that is because, you have that friend who's, I hate to say this, they're an exception. They have an art business, but they have a vision and they have a goal and they're being a business person about it. However, there's a lot of people that because they're not creating a business plan, because they're not setting goals in their relationships, when they take on a job that's not a guaranteed lucrative position like being a physician or being, I just say in the sciences, because there's all areas of the sciences where you make really good money. So the fact is that when you take a job as a creative where your money is intermittent and you don't have a good financial understanding of how to be a good steward, now what you do is you put yourself in a position where you're cyclically employed. And so my position is, and I do feel like I see this a lot, we have Black women and we have women who are being pressured to support their spouse in their dreams. But because there's a poor financial stewardship, he doesn't have that foundation, or because he might be just unrealistic in his expectations. He's not managing his expectations. He wants the instantaneous money that you might see with an entertainer, when that's something that many people have to work for over an extended period of time to receive. He's not taking the job. So my example is that, let's say somebody wants to become a famous DJ, right? It's not like the movies where you walk into a club and everybody in the industry happens to be in that club for the night. That's a job that you have to work at. And you might have to take the gig at the little kid's birthday party several times before you get to that point. And you have a lot of people that say, well, I'm better than that. I'm better than that. But it takes work ethic to really aspire to be a successful DJ. And you can ask any DJ out there. Like, it means playing in not so glamorous venues for an extended period of time. And that's what I personally have seen that regularly, where these women, they give the guy a benefit of the doubt. He doesn't have an ideal position, or he doesn't have something that's a stable position. And then, they let the relationship progress with the communication. They let the relationship progress sexually. And now they're emotionally involved with somebody that wasn't a good provider to begin with. You know what I'm saying? So that's that's what I'm looking at.
Okay, so I do know what you're saying. And I like, just for the listeners, at least from my point of view, I feel like that is, I guess, a particular situation, right? I feel like for myself, for instance, you can make $200,000 a year and you can still be broke, right? So I don't think that I think it's more or less because it's your lifestyle, how you live, how you save money, and you can have $40,000 a year that you make and you can be living comfortably, right? So I feel like it's not really about the money that you make, but I also don't know, and I had explained this, I'm like, well, maybe we have a different set of group of friends, right? Because I don't really know that many men that just don't have anything. And I'm talking about from friends' perspective. Obviously, when it comes to dating, I feel like right now I'm like on a dating hiatus. So I can't really, speak for that. But
Thank you, COVID.
No, well, exactly. But even like there was someone that I was speaking to during COVID, and I felt like he was a good candidate because I feel like he, I live alone, he lives alone. I drive, he drives. Like, you know what I mean? So I feel like I don't know. Like, I feel like I don't want to say that black men in general don't have a job or they don't have, like they're DJing or they're artists and things, because the black men that I know, I feel like everybody is hustling and bustling, doing what they have to do. If they're not already married, they just bought a house. Like, it's kind of, so I think that it depends on maybe the group of people that are dating. But I think that from my experiences and from my friends that I'm around currently, the issue is not really about finances. It's just about compatibility. That's what it comes down to. It depends on how you were raised. Do you guys have similar attitudes? Like, can you tolerate each other? What is your vision for life? What do you do for fun? How do you spend your free time? Do you know how to clean your house? Do you know how to take a shower? Do you brush your teeth? Like, like these are like the things that people start nitpicking on. I'm serious because I feel like now that I'm not sure how old you are, but I'm 33. So now that I'm in this area of where I am, I feel like with dating, with that hiatus that I took at least, it came with a lot of growth, mentally, spiritually, physically, everything. And it also came with a lot of me working on myself, right? And so I feel like the example that you gave, I'm not sure if that's for older women, because maybe they feel like, okay, I've gotten to this age and I would love to, I would love to settle down and nobody's coming. So let me just go ahead and accept this man who doesn't give me what I want or who cannot afford. Because I feel like even if the first date that you have on your first date, I'm not going to know how much money you make, right? And even if I know how much money you make, I don't know how you handle your money, right?
Yeah, I don't know that it's age appropriate. I mean, I am 37, so I don't know if I am experiencing something where I'm just on my grind and people aren't grinding in the same way. It's specifically not anybody that I count as a close friend, but I think what I see as an older woman, and I don't really see myself as an older woman. If you see me, I look like you just got out of college. But what I see often is I see people picking and choosing types of jobs, and they're not necessarily people who didn't go to college. These are people who have college degrees. One of them has a law degree, and they are particular about what job they take. And it's like, dude, I understand you wanting to get to that level of success, but you could have got there if you had just taken a job you didn't like and just toughed it out so that when this new position or opportunity became available, you were in position to receive it, So I think that I understand what you're saying. Like I wouldn't say it's age appropriate, but I just find that I do come from a family that has a very, very strong work ethic, and I do find that there's a lot of guys that are just like, oh, you do you, and then now I don't feel like I'm being taken care of. I just feel like I'm taking care of myself. You know what I'm saying? I don't feel like he's actually providing for me. He's just more of an accessory. And so what I tend to do to safeguard on that is I won't necessarily date somebody just because I'm attracted to them. I let them prove themselves as a friend first at this point, because I just don't have the time to be giving out my phone number to somebody who's wasting my time.
Yeah, oh, definitely. So I have a few questions for you with what you said. Okay, so definitely I think that I know that at least for me this happened, like, after a while you stop taking certain jobs. I mean, I wouldn't say be unemployed completely, but you stop taking certain jobs that do not line up with what you want to do, because it is a waste of time. And when you start working, like I said, it depends on how active you are in the job search, but it's like when you start working a job just to get a paycheck, it takes away sometimes, unless you have the energy, from something that you could be doing to kind of build your business, right? So I work full-time on Wall Street, and I'm doing a podcast because I like to talk about podcasts. I like to talk about dating and relationships. I like to talk about, like, so I have a business on the side, right? And I also, my mother owns a business, and I also help manage her business as well, right? So I feel like I can do that, but some people may not have that, you know, that, I guess, what's the word? They may not have that option to do that. But I do know that one thing I would not have done before I took this job on Wall Street was that I was like, I will never take another job that I don't want to do, and that is like not even in the direction that I want to go in, not the money that I want to go in, because you waste years doing that. So that's from personal experience. But I feel like now, so everybody has been through probably like bad relationships or like mismatched relationships. And so with that, we all learned what our boundaries and our standards are when it comes to dating, right? So therefore, I feel like if you know what your boundaries are and you know what you're looking for and you know what your standards are, nobody should really be caught up now in a situation where he can't do this for me, can't do that for me, and that's what you require for yourself, right? However, one thing that you mentioned that I'm curious about, you mentioned that he can't take care of you. So do you expect your boyfriend, not your husband, to take care of you? And in what ways?
Yeah, I do expect my boyfriend to take care of me because I'm dating to get married at this point.
Yes,
so
of course.
I don't, it's not a tryout anymore. It's like, it's like the real deal. Like, then I'm believing God that the next guy is going to be the right guy. So what that means is that in that context, do I expect my boyfriend to pay my bills? Absolutely not. Mind your business. But what I do expect is I don't want to hear about, splitting the bill on the first date. That's actually pretty offensive to me.
Heck no. That's
offensive to me. Yeah. I don't want to hear maybe 6 months or 8 months into the relationship, you asking for a large lump sum of money from me, which I believe does happen to a lot of, it's happened to me, and it's happened to a lot of people I know. Like, somebody asked me for $15,000, and I was just like, excuse me?
But not to cut you off, but is it different when a woman asks a man for money? Is that different?
I have been always taught to have my own money.
I'm saying, but do you think do you feel differently about it? Like, and if I ask my man for $15,000 as opposed to him asking me for it, I'm just curious.
I can't comprehend that. As I know women do that, but I literally can't comprehend that. Like, I was literally just talking to my mom, like, how come you raised me with such good morals? Because apparently these girls get over. Like, I can't comprehend when, like, I understand a nice gift if it's in his capacity to give it, but I don't understand the girls who expect, $1,000 shoes and $5,000 handbags regularly. Like, what? Why don't you go get it yourself?
If he does it, that's fine. I mean, if he's saving money, like, and that's,
but
he can
what I'm
afford
talking
it.
about. Some women expect that regularly.
Yeah.
And that's just not something. So let's say, okay, so let's flip the script. I need money. It's desperate situation. I need $15,000. I probably would go get a second job. And I would let him know, hey, our time is now reduced because I need to go get the second job. Now, if he moves it upon himself as a boyfriend to give that money to me, I would create a environment where I'm paying him that money back, it would never be something like, I'm just going to take your $15,000. But for me to, like, it kind of, in my particular situation, I got blindsided by that request. And I was saying, well, wait a second, you don't have a slouchy job. You know, it's not like you're making $30,000 a year. You're making decent money. What's going on with your stewardship that you don't have the savings for this?
Yeah.
And so, you know, I had to have that conversation, and then that relationship ended shortly thereafter because it was this person isn't even thinking the same way I am. And here's the thing, a lot of people are like, well, you guys have talked a lot about money in this conversation. Money is responsible for a large portion of divorces. If you are serious about getting to that 42-year finish line, and my parents get their 42 year and still going on strong, like, that's something you have to flesh out and you have to be honest about. It's one of the reasons why people talking about it a lot. And here's another example. And this is one of the things. You could be financially matched with somebody, but if you have a problem where you need to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak, you can create a financial issue that doesn't exist in your relationship. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so that's another, like, aspect. Relationships are so complex. That's another aspect. If you move into a neighborhood where everybody's a millionaire and you guys aren't, and you have a problem with envy or covetousness, and covetousness, for those who don't go to church, is when you lust after things that other people have, you know, and that's all you do is thinking about what everybody else has, not getting it for yourself, then now you've created this financial issue because you're living beyond your means. And that's also an issue that can tear a relationship apart as well.
Definitely. And like I said, so I don't want you to feel any type of way. Like, I feel like we all are different people. We're all raised differently. We all have, like, we're adults now, so we have our own ideas of what's important. So what's important to you may not be important to someone else. So if money is important to you and that's on your list, that's fine. Like, that's for you and whoever you date. You get what I'm saying? So, like, I feel like I know that even, I literally had a conversation today, and I actually, you know, because all I do is talk about dating and relationships, and I was just, I posted something today about if you decide that you want to be in a relationship with somebody, in a serious relationship, here are some of the things that I felt were important. So for me, I didn't say money per se, but I said compatibility, common interest, good character, competence, communication, cash management, not cash itself, your credit report, continence, which is self-control, cooking and cleaning, and common sense. So for me, that's what I feel like is important. But like I said, I think because we're two different people, we obviously will not have the same, you know, expectations. But also I want to go back because when you mentioned that your boyfriend, that you're dating, of course, to get married, like, that you want him to take care of you, I think what you were trying to say was that you don't want him to be dependent on you. You want him to be able to take care of himself and also be able to, you know, take care of you as a girlfriend, meaning to go out on dates and to, you know, to make you feel comfortable as a woman, but not necessarily, like you said, pay your bills and pay your car note and all of that, unless he chooses to. But it's not a requirement. But yeah, so pretty much you want him to be self-sufficient, but also be able to, in some way, shape, or form, you know, never need you, and that, you know, and that, but still actually, if you want to celebrate Valentine's Day, Christmas, if you want to travel. Oh, go ahead.
I think that's something that's overlooked because we women, we forget in our request to be empowered and independent, we forget that we are the only way they're getting kids out of us. And so if you sit there and you stack up your cash management based on two incomes, what happens when that income gets cut by her, you know, when she decides to stay at home, sit on the bench, and take care of your kids, you know, for whether it be 3 months with FMLA or if she says, I'm home permanently. What is your plan? And I think we are talking about the same thing because I keep on saying stewardship, and that's just cash management. That's really what that is. And and I say stewardship because I'm into old school cash management principles. If you don't have the cash in the bank, then maybe you shouldn't put it on your credit card, you know?
Yeah.
So,
I'm somebody who doesn't, no, I definitely agree. And I feel like I'm somebody who, I don't own a credit card. I got rid of them, I think, over a year ago because I feel like that's, for me, like, I'm being a good steward of my money. So that's pretty much what I do. But I feel like, I mean, also there's investing, there's savings, there's different things that people can do. And I do know that there are, and I know some women personally who literally are stay-at-home, like, wives, and the husband is the breadwinner, and they have all different types of jobs. So, like, it really depends. But, let me see, there was something else that you had mentioned. I'm not even sure what it was that I wanted to piggyback off of. So I do want to insert a date story, and this is also like on one of my podcast episodes, and I guess this is kind of similar to what you were talking about, but this is for me like about a decade ago. So there was a guy that I met, you know, nice guy. He was very into communication, you know, like we were talking all the time, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this man, he might be the one, you know, but at the same time, he was somebody that I was not attracted to. Like, but I was at a point in my life where I'm like, okay, you know what? Let me just kind of try to open up the door a little bit more, and, you know, maybe he could be a good guy, and let me see what that's like, right? So for our first date, we went to like this nice little like indoor-outdoor restaurant where like you could sit outside or whatever. So, you know, we sat outside. The music was amazing. Like the food was good. I don't drink, but I know like he was just like, oh yeah, like order what you want, blah, 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 this and that. And then at the end of the date or whatever, like I said, it was amazing. Like I had a great, great time. At the end of the date, he didn't have any money. And he didn't have any money to not even pay for himself. You get what I'm saying? So that is just an example.
And that's like a catfish.
Of course. But that's an example of mismatched dating because one, I feel like for myself, maybe I shouldn't have even went with him. I wasn't attracted to him, right? So I shouldn't have even forced myself, even though it sounds a little shallow, to even, you know, have that experience. Because the reality of it in my mind was, okay, he might be a nice guy, and okay, I can go out to eat, you know, and I like to be social, so I love dinner dates. Like that's what I love. So that was pretty much my like intention, but it's just kind of like at the end of the day. So in that case, I do agree with you when it comes to money because some people just don't have it like that, but yet they're trying to live above their means. We could have went to McDonald's. I was, like I said, in my 20s.
Exactly. And
just for the
thing.
conversation.
Let's say you know that McDonald's isn't quite appealing for a first date. There's nothing wrong with us going to Starbucks and having coffee conversation. You know?
But I wouldn't even consider those dates, though. So if it was McDonald's or Starbucks, I wouldn't even consider it a date. It's like a meetup. Like we're just meeting up and the funny thing about you saying Starbucks, I'm sorry to cut you off, is that my very first episode on this podcast was about red flags, and there was like a back and forth. It was a man that was my guest, and he feels like Starbucks is the first date, and I disagree 110%. So let me know what you think. But anyway, go ahead.
I think Starbucks is for the guy that you don't really like. I use Starbucks as a filter. Like, if I don't really like that person, but I don't want to be rude because there's no reason on the surface to be rude, then we're going to Starbucks. And usually within 10 minutes, it'll be verified whether we can go forward or not. Now, the cool thing is and one of the things I want to stress is I get dates. Like, I've gotten to the point where I don't give out my phone number because I could be completely distracted in the dating world. So I don't have a problem getting dates. My issue is what I'm dating for. Like, what's the purpose? What's my vision for my life? And that's, you were absolutely on point when you said, hey, if you are structured, you know what you want, you know what you don't want in a relationship, you shouldn't be running into the issues where you are mismatched dating. And I think one of the things I want to stress is people get tired. People get in that position, especially when you're a girl from the church and you're in the church and you're looking for a Christian guy. You know, you're saying, okay, well, God, what do you want? Who do you want from me? And you're praying about that. And then people get tired. And that's where they open up these doors. Like, for instance, you went on a date with a guy, you're just trying to expand your horizons. And if you thought about it really good, like, it was more or less you didn't want to hurt the person's feelings versus did you really expand your horizons? You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, no, it wasn't. I'm okay with hurting people's feelings. That doesn't bother me one bit. And I'm also okay with, like, because why would I make myself uncomfortable for somebody else? However, like, at that point in my life, like, I used to go out a lot. I used to party a lot. But in general, I'm a social person. So I like dinner dates, period. So for me, I'm like, okay, well, we could go out and eat and chit-chat. Like, I like to have conversation anyway. So that was pretty much but I would say expanding my horizon because he wasn't easy on the eyes for me. But that's pretty much, like that's pretty, and like I said, it was a good date. So I did actually, but unfortunately, like I said, he didn't have any money, period, to pay for himself or for me. And so that's where like the catfish comes in, But, but yeah.
And that's got to be like gut wrenching when it's actually a good date and you guys click and the person just didn't get it together. It's like, well, you didn't like me enough to get it together, or like, you know what I'm saying? Because there's also free things you can do. You don't have to necessarily, if Starbucks isn't considered a date for you, you certainly can take the girl on a picnic. Like, we like picnics. Even if we don't like bugs, we still like picnics. Especially
I don't like
if you bring
picnics.
bug spray.
I mean, because I don't like
I'm telling you.
Ground. But I mean, like I said, it depends on what you like. But you guys will discuss that. You know what I mean? So if you're talking with a man, he would know. Like for me, like Trace, I don't like to be outdoors too much. I will do it, but it's like I don't really. If we're in an area that is like a real park, and it's just like if we could sit on a bench, if you have a bench or like bench tables and things like that. But I'm not sitting on the grass. It's just not for me. But like I said, it just depends on what you like. I don't like to be hot. So people who know me, like, especially like I'm always fanning myself unless, whatever. But that's just kind of
I mean, that's understandable though. That's understandable. But you, go ahead with your question.
Okay. So you said that you would go to Starbucks with somebody that you don't really like, right? And I feel like, but why? Because if I already know really that I don't really like you, or I don't even want to get the chance to get to know you, I wouldn't even leave my house for Starbucks. Like I can take myself anywhere, to be honest. Anywhere that I want to eat, I can literally take myself and I'll just get it to go, right? But I feel like why can't you go to Olive Garden? That's as basic as it gets. Olive Garden or Applebee's or something like that. It's still like, compared to
if
like
I'm uncertain,
Starbucks.
Yeah, if I'm uncertain, like if I'm uncertain for whatever reason, whether it's and one example was I met a guy at the mall. So he didn't look bad. He wasn't a bad looking, he wasn't a scrub. I did question why he was at the mall at that time of day, but then I couldn't say anything because I was at the mall at that time of day.
People take days off all the time.
So I didn't say anything. I met this person at the mall, and he was a little pushy. I didn't say anything because it wasn't good pushy. It wasn't like, hey, push me. It was more like, he's a little rude. I didn't say anything. And he was he's like, I would like to go, on a date. And I was like, well, I don't have any frame of reference. I don't know anything about this person. I was like, well, I can, we can go to Starbucks, da-da-da-da, right? Like, just a safe, neutral, this is not really a date. This is just a trial error period for you. And within, I would say, 10, 15 minutes into a very animated conversation, I think that this person was very much abusive. They were very much abusive, and in the sense of I have, things rather not share on a public phone call here that I don't like to do in a relationship. And I was saying, well, this is something that would be a hard limit for me, I'm not interested in until I'm married. And they were like, well, they wanted to negotiate that subject. And I was just like, excuse me? This is not a negotiation period. This is not a contract. This is not a legal business merger acquisition anything. Like, you know what I'm saying? And then as the conversation, because 15 minutes in, I knew this guy wasn't the right guy, but I didn't want to be rude, and I didn't want to be, because I'm learning how to be graceful when I reject a guy. I think sometimes we can be really, really rough with guys, even though they don't say we're rough. We've been hostile, and so I'm learning how to be less hostile.
But I feel like if you say no, thank you, like that's, to me, I feel like, I have a man or I'm married. Like you can say anything. But what I want to rewind really quick, because I feel like with you, it wasn't the first 15 minutes that you figured out he wasn't the guy for you. You knew at the mall, and if you had listened to your discernment, you would have known like he's not it. Even to go on a basic date, you get what I'm saying? Because I feel like if he couldn't hide that in 15 minutes, if you guys had a phone call for even 30 minutes, that would have really kind of, whatever you were looking for.
I didn't want to give him my phone number. Oh, let me clarify. I met the person at the mall. I immediately went to Starbucks. Like I made the date happen right then and there.
That was like, okay, I get that. That's a little different.
It was a spontaneous date. Yes. I never gave them my phone number. I didn't.
Okay, I get what you're saying.
Here. You get the number. I am interested. If you don't, well, you know what I'm saying? So my thing was, let me, figure out what's going on. Let me see what type of person I'm talking to. And let me tell you something. The things that he did would have been considered cute 10 years ago, but I'm not that girl from 10 years ago. This person was definitely abusive, and they were abusive in the sense that it was like they had no sense of compromise. You know what I'm saying? And
was he African? Just asking. No, I'm African. That's what I'm asking. I'm just curious.
No, he wasn't. He was he was half Jamaican, half Latino. So he wasn't a bad looking.
No, that he wasn't a play though.
That's the thing. I've never met a Jamaican that was like rude. Like, and
really?
that could be because no, I know that that's a stereotype, but I've never like really met like a really mean, rude Jamaican person. Like, I haven't met that. I'm not saying they're not out there. I just haven't met that type of person. And the person was very good looking. You know, looked like a model. I was like, okay, I still got it. And I was in grad school at that. So, I'm sitting here. I probably should be doing my homework. And I'm in the mall, naturally, Sephora. And so here I am. I'm getting picked up. And, that's another thing. We also, a lot of us women, we preen at that pickup, and we need to just kind of learn how to back off, even though it's appealing to be wanted in that manner. We need to learn how to back off and say, well, is this even a healthy situation to spend my next 2 hours in? Next half an hour, do they need my phone number? If they didn't. And I kind of picked it up, but I really did not want to be rude. So I said, okay, let me let this person talk, state their case. And that I could see myself an emotional roller coaster for the next 6 months.
Yeah,
it was
not worth it.
It was like, and so he was very much surprised when I said, no, I didn't want to continue a relationship further. He thought, he hit it out the park, and I was just like, listen, you're not the right guy for me. You're looking for a different type of girl.
Yeah, and that's fine. And like I said, that's a good example of mismatched dating, even though it was like not really a date. But so I just want to I guess because we do have to wrap it up. But I just want to ask you, before we leave, is there any type of advice that you would give to anyone who's probably in that situation? Maybe it's a woman and she can't find the right guy, or maybe she's a woman and she's in a situation where they are mismatched for whatever reason in any type of way. Is there anything that you would, advise?
I would say that if you're in that situation where you're taking care of somebody that you don't want to be taken care of, or you've settled. You feel like you've settled. You need to look at it. And that's tricky because sometimes people have kids at this point, and they're just dating. Consider first of all the distance. Can you untwine from this person? Can you get away? Can you even get like a week where you can really contemplate the pros and cons of your relationship? And then if you do go to church, take it to the Lord. Say, Lord, maybe I messed up. Maybe this isn't the right person for me. If it's not, can you bring a peaceful into this relationship? Now, let's say you don't believe in God and you don't think that God has anything to do with your relationships, but you are in this situation. Take that time away to make a pros and cons sheet and say, well, what was it that I want? What's my goal? Where do I see myself in 5 years? And how does this person fit? If you find that you have to change the person 80% of who they are now to get to where you want to be, then you're not in a healthy situation. You're in a toxic situation. And that's something that we initially talked about money, but we're also talking about communication. If you feel that you're in a relationship where you have to change so much of the essential person, then you're not in the right relationship. And that's a mismatch as well. And that means that, all other things equal, the physical relationship is great. There's chemistry, there's attraction, there's finances, and yet you still feel that that's not good enough. They need to be a part of my ideal. You're not in a healthy relationship. And that could be on you. You might need to change things, or it could be on them. They need to change things. But either way, you need to step back from that relationship and come to an agreement of where
Yes.
you are, what do you want to be? So that's the
yes.
best advice I can give.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Christy, for taking out the time and for giving your insight on how you feel about this topic. Now, before we go, do you have any type of social media that if any listener wants to reach out to you or contact you that you want to share?
Yeah, you can reach me on Instagram. It's super cool, Jesus Girl. I'm pretty open to, talking and listening to people. And I think sometimes when you're in those situations where you don't feel like you can get out, like, it's good to talk to somebody who you don't know. They're objective. They're not in it. They're not emotionally involved. And they're not going to sit there and spread it around the state of New Jersey. So that's always good.
Yes. All right. Well, like I said, thank you so much for your time. To my listeners, I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. And until next time, you guys have a good one. Bye-bye.